Hey everyone, welcome to Big Flick Energy. So James Gunn is the new head of DC. We've known this for a while, and it looks like he's going to make a lot of changes. He said that we were going to get some announcements in January, and it doesn't really seem like that's going to happen at this point. I feel like the month is coming to a close. Hopefully we do get those announcements before the month ends, but I'm not 100% confident in that. I'm very curious to see what this new DC universe is, because we know that some characters are going to change, like Henry Cavill's Superman is going to be recasted as a different actor, but we don't know if it's going to be a completely new universe, or if it's going to be a half reboot, because it also seems like Gal Gadot may stay as Wonder Woman, and Zachary Levi may stay as Shazam. So because of this, I'm very curious to see what they're going to do. But one thing that we do know is James Gunn does plan on bringing back his Guardians of the Galaxy cast members in his new job as the DC Universe lead. So after he stated that he was going to bring these cast members back into his new universe, I took the opportunity to say, okay, who do I think each of them would fit in this universe? I had a plan to do a video of all the characters recasted in this new universe, but until James Gunn officially tells us his plan, I can't do that. So for now, the video is just going to be of the Guardians of the Galaxy actors and which characters I think they could play in this universe. Now, before I start, I want to mention some rules. The first rule is I'm assuming that this is a full reboot, meaning all characters go. There are no limitations for the characters that I choose. Second rule is I'm not going to give a casting for characters that have already been in DC Universe projects. For example, I'm not going to give a casting for Sylvester Stallone or for Michael Rooker. And then the last rule is I'm not going to delve into Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I think Will Poulter is a great actor, and I think he could fit in a lot of roles. But I would rather wait until I see that film to really see how he could fit in a superhero project to know how he would fit in this universe as well. So, here we go. First up, we have Chris Pratt, who plays Star-Lord in the MCU. He's been the leader of this team and has proven himself as a Guardian of the Galaxy and a master gunslinger, and with this character in DC, he can continue exploring one of those two as Jonah Hex. Jonah Hex is pretty much DC's take on Clint Eastwood old Western characters. He's had his fair share of live-action appearances, whether it be as a one-off in the Arrowverse or in his own film. This is definitely a character I would love to see in Gunn's DC universe, and I think Pratt is perfect for the role, partially because Pratt is familiar with this type of role, given he was a lead in The Magnificent Seven. He has the voice down, he has the shooting down, and he probably has the look down too. Not to mention, it would be a massive change of pace for him, from a galactic hero to a more grounded one, where I had seen some people say he should be Hal Jordan in this universe. But I think that's way too on the nose, and I don't think he fits that character the way he can play Jonah Hex. And while it may seem like Pratt isn't serious enough for this role, just watch his other films instead of Guardians of the Galaxy and Parks and Rec, and even though he's still a likable character in his other projects, he can definitely play a more serious persona. Next up, we have Zoe Saldana as Gamora. She's done a great job in this role, and has shown she's as physically intimidating as any other character. When deciding who she would be perfectly cast as, I decided on Amanda Waller. Now this may seem like an odd choice, but if this is a full-fledged reboot, and they are even recasting Amanda Waller, I don't think an actress who plays the role similarly to Viola Davis will be received all too well, because you won't be able to beat Davis at her own game. That's why you need a very different take on the character, which hasn't been seen on the big screen. In some iterations, Amanda Waller is intimidating and extremely intelligent, which Saldaña could play well, as she sounds very literate when she speaks, which is essential for Waller. But she can do something Davis hasn't been able to do, and give us an Amanda Waller who could also beat somebody up if she needs to. Now let's assume they don't do a full recast. My choice for Saldaña would actually be Hawkgirl. Many iterations of the character have given her different origins, whether it be as an alien or as an ancient Egyptian who keeps on resurrecting post-mortem. I think Saldaña would fit as both versions of the character, where Saldaña's background is so mixed and obscure that she could pass as Egyptian if needed, with Haitian, Dominican, Puerto Rican, and Lebanese roots. But she could also fit as the alien version, especially because that version is always a redhead. And you already know Hollywood loves recasting redheads as lightskins. I've never known why that's become a thing, but it's pretty insane, and Saldaña could be the next one to go. Also, considering they casted Aldous Hodge as Hawkman in Black Adam, even if he is recasted, he did a great job, and it didn't seem like a character people complained about getting race swapped. So knowing Hollywood, They'll keep him that way and probably bring Hawkgirl alongside him. I also think Saldaña's performance in Avatar and the MCU, especially her war cry and her brutality in battle, would fit very well as Hawkgirl. If you've seen the Justice League animated show, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, let me show you.
Stay back. Oh.
Next up, we have Dave Bautista, who plays Drax in the MCU. To me, this is the most obvious choice in Bane. He's the most commonly fan-casted actor for the role, and having a big body, he could definitely play the part. The only negative is I expect this take on Bane to possibly be CGI'd to look massive, so it would be pointless to get an already big actor, but if they do it how they did in Young Justice, where he's still massive without the Venom drug running through his veins, then I think it can work well. Next, we have Vin Diesel, who plays Groot in the MCU, with one of the hardest voice acting jobs ever.
Stop the cap. Stop the cap right now. Stop the cap.
He moves on to DC, which he'll probably be fine with because The Rock won't be there anymore. Now, this is probably my most controversial suggestion of who an actor should play. So before you dislike this video or stop watching, hear me out. Vin Diesel should be the DC Universe's version of Lex Luthor. I know. He looks the part, but can he sell the part is what everybody is going to say. Vin Diesel is an actor that some people do not believe is the most intelligent, but I say if an actor can lead a franchise of racing movies which aren't even about racing and make near $1 billion almost every time a new one comes out, that man must be pretty smart. But honestly, I think he can handle the intimidation factor of the character well, but the super genius aspect is one not many think he can do. But all it will take is for him to say something intelligent near the beginning of the film to show that he's 2 steps ahead of everybody and continue in that persona throughout the film. Now, physically, I think he is the perfect casting if we're comparing him to the Justice League Unlimited version of the character. That version was bulky even in the suit and looked like he could beat somebody up even without kryptonite. Not to mention, I've seen some people say that version of the character was actually black because of his lips, which was one way I did not expect this great show to pop back into my life. But Vin Diesel is actually an actor who he himself has said, referring to his biological father's background, that he himself is definitely a person of color. So, he definitely would look the part of that version of Lex. And look, the biggest complaints about DCU's Lex were he doesn't look like Lex, he doesn't sound like Lex, he doesn't act like Lex. I disagree with act like Lex because some iterations of the character have a more similar persona to that version. But hey, if you didn't like a Lex that looked and sounded so differently, I'm giving you the polar opposite of that Lex with Vin Diesel. Next up, we have Bradley Cooper, who plays Rocket in the MCU. For Bradley Cooper, the character I chose for him was Reverse Flash. Now, my first choice for Reverse Flash is and will stay Anthony Starr, who stars as Homelander in the TV series The Boys. And the way he plays that character makes me certain he would kill it as Reverse Flash. Now, I say Bradley Cooper should get this role for a couple of reasons, and the first being he has a more flexible schedule than Anthony Starr, where if Starr is available, get him. But with season 4 of The Boys filming and the show expected to go on for longer, for an actor to have multiple appearances in 2 superhero universes, which I would expect of a character like Reverse Flash in the DCU, that would be extremely difficult and unlikely. So why Bradley Cooper then? So for one, Bradley Cooper is an A-tier actor that can pull off a villain role if needed, and he can play a character filled with some sane madness, where he sounds crazy and does crazy things, but his intelligence makes them seem more logical and planned. His voice as Rocket in the MCU actually reminds me in some ways of Reverse Flash's voice in the Injustice games.
Crowd said you couldn't resist a good crisis.
So he has that down. And I actually think his facial features match better as Reverse Flash than Anthony Starr's. I'm sure this is a role Bradley Cooper would kill, and I would love to see him play it. Next up, we have Karen Gillan, who plays Nebula in the MCU. In this role, she's proven she could play an action hero in a similar way to her character in Jumanji, and this will continue in the DCU as Karen Gillan takes on the role of Batgirl. Karen Gillan would love to hear these words come out of James Gunn's mouth because she herself has stated she wants to make a Batgirl film, not just star in it, but also had interest in directing it. She obviously has the redhead look, where the only flaw with her appearance is Batgirl typically starts off as a teenager or early 20s, and Karen Gillan is already in her 30s. However, Gillan looks very good for her age, and let's assume the Batman they chose for the DCU is not an older take like Affleck, but instead a prime version of that character like Arkham Batman. They could have this version of Batgirl be mid-20s, which Gillan definitely can pass as that age. So I would love to see Karen Gillan in this role and genuinely think she would kill it. The next actor to talk about is Klementieff, who is the MCU's version of Mantis, but would take on a very different role with the DCU as Lady Shiva. She's not a character known as well as a Batgirl or a Reverse Flash, but whenever she shows up in a project, her presence is felt, and I believe Pon could pull off the character's mysterious yet vicious persona. Lady Shiva plays a huge role in storylines dealing with Ra's al Ghul, which the next actor on this list will actually be. She is also an Asian character, but DC never gave us an exact location of what country she's from, so this is up to Gunn's imagination. Now, Pon is primarily French, but she also has a very mixed heritage, where she is Korean, French, and Russian. She was born in Canada, but then ended up living in Japan and the Ivory Coast, and eventually went to France later on in her life. Because of her globe-trotting background, she can pull off a version of Lady Shiva who knows multiple languages and can keep that aspect of mystery of her actual background. I also think she could pull off the action sequences pretty well and could play a menacing character like Shiva. As mentioned before, we now go off to our casting of Ra's al Ghul, which goes to the antagonist of the first Guardians film, Ronan the Accuser, who is actually known as Lee Pace. When I think of Ra's al Ghul, I think of a larger-than-life antagonist who acts like a god, a king, and a man all at once. Lee Pace is an actor who has pulled this off a couple of times, but primarily in his role as the Elven King in the Lord of the Rings franchise. He seemed so majestic, yet also so fear-inducing and intimidating. His voice encompasses what you want to hear when you see an antagonist like Ra's al Ghul, and he also looks the part. I definitely think Lee Pace could play a great version of Ra's al Ghul in live action, which could potentially be better than the Dark Knight's iteration of the character, which I actually wasn't the biggest fan of, even though I love Liam Neeson as an actor. Next up, we have Kurt Russell, who I sadly do not see coming to the DCU. I'm sure there are a lot of great characters he could play, but he himself has stated he wants the final character he plays to be Santa Claus in the Christmas Chronicles franchise, which already has 2 films. So it seems like his career may be coming to a close, so I didn't want to speculate who he could be, but I just wanted to praise him for having been an incredible actor throughout his career, beloved by many. The next antagonist to delve into is Elizabeth Debicki, who plays Aisha in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. My casting for it does not seem logical at first, but I have a very specific reason of why I want her in this role, and the role I'm speaking about is as Queen Mira. Keep in mind I'm saying Queen Mira. The character of Mira is one everybody knows now, and it's not for a good reason. People know the character because of who played her. Amber Heard, which I don't think I need to go into details of what happened. Let me just say though that DC really shit the bed with that casting. Honestly though, I didn't think she was bad as Mira and played the warrior princess Mira pretty well, same as Jason Momoa was incredible as the warrior Aquaman. My biggest flaw with them was they never sold me as King and Queen of Atlantis. I just couldn't see them in that way, which is something I wanted to see from Aquaman. So my casting of Elizabeth Debicki is based on the dual casting of Aquaman and Mira as Alexander Skarsgård and Elizabeth Debicki. Both are actors who I could see sitting upon a throne as King and Queen of Atlantis, where Debicki has kind of done that in a way in The Crown, and Skarsgård has played characters like this, especially in The Northman, where I would still want to see his version of Aquaman be brutal like Jason Momoa's version, where he's still a warrior, but I also want to see him act as a king, which I think The Northman is the best example of that. Elizabeth Debicki is an actress that just looks like royalty. and will play Queen Mira much better than Herd could, while Herd was probably the better version of a warrior princess. But if this is a new and more accurate take on the characters, where they don't do another origin film, Debicki and Skarsgård would be the perfect duo for these characters. So I know the list of actors will extend after Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is released with Adam Warlock and others, and I'm definitely going to do a video down the line of all the other characters I would recast in the DCU, but for now, these are the characters I believe these Guardians of the Galaxy stars would fit the best as in James Gunn's new DC universe. Please let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe for more videos like this, and see you next time on Big Flick Energy.